Good morning guys, so today is Monday the 27th of May and today I'm setting myself the challenge of actually getting my act together and catching up with the Myth Take Reads book group because I'm falling so far behind and we're almost into the third month of the book group and I haven't read any of the books yet. So basically I haven't had a chance to read them, but now I have both of the books for April and May and I'm really excited to give them a read, and I thought I might as well vlog the process because I'd love to document my thoughts on the books and share it with you all because they both sound like such interesting books. So if you haven't heard of Myth Take Reads, I'll pop a link in the description below to both Charlotte and Ashley's channels because they are the hosts of Myth Take and they've got videos explaining exactly what it's all about. So the pick for April for Irish folklore was The Wren Hunt by Mary Watson, which is the one that really gripped me and made me want to take part in this sort of book group because it sounded like such an interesting book. It basically follows a girl called Wren who is an augur, which I don't really know too much about and I'm really excited to find out more, but basically she's hiding that from the people around her and it's quite a dark story, I gathered from watching Ashley and Charlotte's vlogs, which is something that I absolutely love, so I'm really excited to read this one and see what it's all about. And I'm going to be picking this one up first because it was the first pick and I want to catch up in order if I can. And then the next book, which was the May pick for European mythology and folklore, was Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier, which is based on a myth or folklore story called The 12 Brothers, I believe, and it follows a girl who ends up having to try and save all of her brothers from a curse, but she has to do it and she can't speak, so she loses her ability to speak, and it follows her along a journey trying to break a curse, which again sounds really dark and interesting and I'm super intrigued to find out more about it. So yeah, both of these books I'm super excited to read, and as I said, I thought I might as well vlog it and show you all of my thoughts. But for now it's Monday morning and you might be able to tell I'm ready to go to work, so I'm probably not going to be able to do any more reading until my lunch break, but I'll catch up with you when I've read some more of the Wren Hunt and let you know my thoughts. So it's currently about 8 PM on Monday evening and I'm clearly just out of the shower. I'm basically ready to chill for the evening now that I'm back from work. But to just give a little bit of an update on my reading of the Wren Hunt, I did read on my lunch break, but I only had about half an hour, so I'm only about 35 pages in, but so far really enjoying the writing style. It's gripped me right from the beginning, which I had thought it would just given the reviews I've seen from other people, but it's got a very mysterious tone to it which I'm really liking. And so far all it's really done is set up, obviously introducing us to Wren, our protagonist, and also set up this I guess like rivalry between the augurs and the judges. So Wren is an augur, which is basically, from what I'm gathering, someone who can like read symbols and signals and kind of see the future through like interpreting signs, and then the judges are someone that they used to be allied with but are now sort of rivals with, and so Wren is in a community where she's kind of hiding her identity as an augur to try and keep herself safe. And so at the moment we're just getting this set up, but it's completely gripping me, particularly because I honestly don't know very much about the history of things like augurs and judges, and I've never really encountered them in literature before, and so I'm really intrigued to find out more about them just because I don't know much, but it's definitely an interesting concept. So as I said, I'm just out of the shower and I don't have anything else to do for the rest of the evening, so of course I'm going to go make a cup of tea and then read some more of the Wren Hunt. Morning guys, so it is now Tuesday and I've just made myself some porridge and fruit for breakfast, and I'm just about to actually catch up on some other Myth Take vlogs. So I'm just about to watch Emma's one from the channel Emmy, and I'll pop a link to her video down below because she just posted her vlog from reading Daughter of the Forest. So I'm going to go and catch up with that whilst I eat my breakfast. Then I'm hoping to maybe do a little bit of yoga and then do some more reading and then obviously head off to work. So it's just about 8 o'clock and I'm about to just leave for work, but I did manage to do a little bit more reading of the Wren Hunt this morning and I'm now about 85 pages in. So obviously yesterday wasn't the best day for reading because I just had to keep doing other things and I kept getting distracted, so I didn't end up doing all that much reading. So I'm hoping that today I'll have a bit more time and I'll be able to prioritise it a bit more and actually make some good progress on this book. But nevertheless, I am still really enjoying it. As I mentioned yesterday, because the concepts of judges and augurs is something that I'm really not familiar with, I'm finding it super interesting to learn more about it and read about them. But in particular, what I'm liking about this book is just the writing style and the way that we're sort of getting to know all of these characters, particularly because, as I mentioned, the augurs in this book are trying to hide their identity from the judges to keep themselves safe. And so as we're following Wren, there seems to be a very tense narrative because you're constantly kind of on edge because you know that she's got such high stakes for if she's found out. So for that reason, it's just a really interesting book and I'm feeling like it's going to be very dark, which I love. But anyway, I need to set off for work now, so I'll probably do some more reading on my lunch break and then hopefully this evening I'll actually make some good progress. So it's Tuesday evening, my words just completely disappeared from my brain then, but it is Tuesday evening currently and I'm now about 140 pages into the Wren Hunt and it started going in a direction where I feel like there's going to be a romance focus, and personally for me, romance is just not something that I'm like that bothered about, particularly in a book like this where I'm really in it for the dark, mysterious aspects. I feel like the romance is only going to serve to kind of like take away from the like darkness and mystery because it's going to make it a bit less dark and a bit more romantic and sweet. And the kind of romance I'm predicting it's going to be is going to be a kind of like Romeo and Juliet type romance, but yeah, it's not something that I'm super excited to find out about. But yeah, I'm going to keep reading because the like darkness and mystery and like mythological folklore aspects are definitely interesting me, but the romance not so much, so we'll see how it goes. But as I said, I'm about 140 pages in and I'm setting myself the goal of trying to get to 200 pages this evening. So I'm going to go make a cup of tea and also have some biscuits, which is kind of what I really wanted to talk about because I'm not sure that I've ever mentioned them on this channel before. However, I found some biscuits at Tesco's, which are these like plain dark chocolate digestives, and so if you are a vegan or dairy-free person in the UK, these biscuits from Tesco's are accidentally vegan. They're super cheap and they taste amazing. I was never actually that bothered about chocolate digestives before I went vegan, but then I tried these ones and they are incredible. So yeah, I'm gonna make a cup of tea, munch on some of these biscuits because when I get started on biscuits I just can't stop, and read some more of the Wren Hunt. So it's now Wednesday evening and I didn't have much time to do any reading today so far because I was at work during the day, where obviously I don't have all that much time to read other than lunchtime, and then after work I actually went to my mum's house, so I didn't have time to read then either. However, I did end up having quite a fun conversation with my mum about the Wren Hunt because she asked if I was reading anything interesting, and I mentioned that I was reading a book based on Irish folklore because she's Irish, so she was really interested in that. And when I said that it was called the Wren Hunt, she immediately started telling me about how when she was younger in Ireland they call Boxing Day St. Stephen's Day, and she was telling me about how they have a song about the Wren Hunt but they call it Ran instead of Wren, and I was like, oh my god, that is literally what this book is all about. So that was really fun for me just because it definitely made it feel like, or it like solidified the fact that this is a book that's actually based on genuine folklore and mythology and it's actually still a part of Irish culture, which was really interesting because although I felt like that was the case, it was really good to have that confirmed by someone who's actually from Ireland. So yeah, that was interesting. But I'm currently about 250 pages into this book and it seems to be moving away from the romance aspect again and back into the darker, more mysterious aspect, which I really like. I feel like the romance will continue to be a part of it, but as long as it's not the main focus, that'll keep me happy. But because I'm about 250 pages in now, I feel like we've got to know Wren a little bit more and I'm starting to develop a little bit of a theory about what I think her past might be, because I feel like there's a little bit of a hidden thing going on between her potential connection to the judges and the augurs, and I think there's something deeper going on there. So I'm really interested to see how that goes and whether we find out any more information about whether she's more connected to the judges than she initially thinks, because that's at least what I think anyway. So I'm going to do a little bit more reading now and hopefully get to around page 300 before I go to bed. But yeah, I'm really interested to see where this is going to go because it seems to be getting very dark and mysterious and tense again, which I love. popping in super quick before I head off to work to let you know that my prediction that I made for the Wren Hunt last night was right, which I'm super happy about, because usually when I make predictions about books I'm just not very good at it and I can never really like think about where I think the plot's gonna go. But reading the Wren Hunt, I just had a really clear idea of what I thought was coming up, and it was right, which is really exciting, and I'm now really interested to see how that affects the plot and where it's gonna go. So I'm currently about 80 pages from the end of this book, so I'm definitely hoping to finish it today, but obviously I'm heading out to work now, so I'll probably finish it off this evening and let you know my thoughts when it's done. So it's now Thursday evening and I've just met my goal for the day, which was of course to finish reading the Wren Hunt, and I'm super pleased that I've finally finished this book, because when it comes to reading I feel like I'm late to every single party, whether it's reading hyped books or catching up with book groups and stuff. I never seem to be able to keep up and I'm always like the last one to get around to reading stuff, but I'm so glad that I finally read this one, particularly because I found it to be such an enjoyable read, and I think I'm going to end up giving this book 4 stars because on the whole it was a really enjoyable experience. But as I've mentioned, there were certain aspects about the book that I didn't enjoy so much. So of course one of those things was the romance, which I just found didn't really add all that much to the story and sometimes took away from the darker side of the story that I was really enjoying. And then the other thing that I found a little bit less satisfying was the fact that I feel like we got to know Wren as a character really well, but there were other characters who were actually quite integral to the plot who I felt like just weren't developed quite in the same way. And of course Wren was the protagonist, so we were always going to get to know her better, but I do feel like there were some characters that I just felt like I didn't get the chance to know as well as I would have liked, and knowing them a bit better might have added to the story even more. But nevertheless it was a really enjoyable read, and particularly I just enjoyed finding out more about Irish folklore, because it's something that I haven't necessarily come across before or read about, but it was such an interesting topic, and reading this book has definitely made me want to find other books about similar topics, just because I'd love to read more and find out more about the subject because it was so interesting. And I was also just really pleased with the writing style of this book. It completely gripped me, and I just was super impressed by the fact that it managed to keep such a tense atmosphere almost from the very beginning of the book right to the end, and it just keeps that mystery and that dark atmosphere all the way through, and I just absolutely loved that. So I really enjoyed this book, and I'm also super excited to read the sequel, particularly because I know that the Wicker line from watching Charlotte's reading vlog that it has a dual narrative style, which I think will definitely solve my issue with this book, which was the fact that I didn't feel like all of the characters were as well developed, because obviously having a dual narrative means that we'll get to know 2 protagonists, so that will be amazing, and I'm really excited to finally get around to that one. Although if my past record of reading and catching up with series is anything to go by, I probably won't pick it up for quite a while, but I am definitely going to get to it in the future. But for now, catching up with the current Myth-Take books, my next pick is going to be the May Myth-Take book, which is Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier, which is a really tiny mass market paperback book. So it's super short, but it has like 500 pages, and I know from listening to other people that have been taking part in Myth-Take that it's got like 40-page long chapters, so that is going to be a very interesting experience. But this is based on European myths and folklore, and I feel like it's got some connections with Irish as well, just from hearing people talk about the like character names. They all definitely sound quite Irish, so that should be an interesting sort of experience to see if that connects at all with any of the subjects that were dealt with in the Wren Hunt. But yeah, I'm hopefully going to get started on this one this evening, but yeah, excited to see how I find this book and how long it takes me to read. Morning guys, so I just wanted to take this opportunity to call myself out for being completely useless, because last night I didn't read any of Daughter of the Forest, but I did manage to pick it up this morning, and I'm currently about 10 pages into this book, and so far it's a really intriguing story. I hadn't realised that it's actually also set in Ireland, which again is really interesting and will give me the opportunity to find out more about Irish folklore, which I was literally just saying last night is something I'm really excited to do. Again, about this story, comparing it to the Wren Hunt, I'm finding that this one, while the Wren Hunt was a contemporary story that was quite sort of relatable from a contemporary perspective but just had elements of folklore and mythology woven into it, this book definitely has more of a classic fantasy feel. It feels historical and it feels very like otherworldly, like much less relatable than the Wren Hunt, but for that reason I feel like it's going to be even more immersive than the Wren Hunt, just because I feel like you're going to be completely transported into a world where mythology and folklore is everything, and so that's going to be really, really interesting. So of course I don't really know too much about the story yet because I'm only 10 pages in, but we're getting to know Circa and all of her brothers and getting introduced to all of the characters, which is interesting. And I can also already tell that nature is just going to be such an important part of this story, which is really exciting for me because I love nature and would love to read more about it and see what its role is in the sort of folklore of this story. So that's really exciting, but of course I have to go to work now, so I don't have time to do any more reading. But on a similar note, on my way to work I always listen to podcasts, and usually I listen to one called Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, but yesterday Charlotte, one of the hosts from Myth Takes, posted on their Twitter to say that she had a recommendation of a podcast called Lore, which is basically about folklore and mythology and looking at that from different sort of perspectives and everything. And so I've downloaded an episode of that, which is actually called Perspective, and Charlotte has also recommended another one to me called Desperate Measures, which I'm also probably going to listen to on my way home from work. So I'm going to listen to this, and I'm really excited to sort of get into a new podcast and see what that's all about. So yeah, I'm going to head off to work now and I'll read some more on my lunch break. So I'm now home from work, and I just wanted to give a little update about the podcast that I listened to this morning, Lore, because I really enjoyed it. So the episode that I listened to called Perspective was basically about colonial American settlements in the 1600s in places like Massachusetts and New England, and looking at some like stories and folklore tales that have been passed down from those times about sort of like supernatural events that were attributed to being kind of like the work of the devil. So one example of course is the Salem witch trials, and of course witches were considered to be like sort of the devil's workers, but it also looked at some other similar events that were happening in other settlements and how they were treated very similarly as being considered part of the devil's work. So it was super interesting because the Salem witch trials have always really intrigued me, so finding a podcast that deals with that kind of topic is just amazing. So I'm super glad that I saw Charlotte's recommendation on Twitter yesterday, because I can just tell that Lore is going to be one of my new favourite podcasts. So we've just gotten back from doing our Saturday 5k run, which is why my face looks a lot less like my normal face and a lot more like a tomato. But besides from that, I actually didn't end up doing all that much more reading last night because I ended up editing a video, and once I'd done that I picked up my book but then fell asleep almost straight away because my eyes just could not stay open. But I'm hoping to do quite a bit of reading of Daughter of the Forest today. But for now, Jay and I are about to go get ready and go get some donuts from Temple Coffee and Donuts, because it's really not a vlog of mine if I don't go and get donuts anymore, because that's just my life now. And we're also going to go into town, so I'll probably end up going to the bookshop too. So it's a little while later now on Saturday evening, and we're obviously back from town and shopping and all of that fun stuff, and I'm quite proud to inform you that I actually managed to come away from Waterstones without buying any new books today, which is such a rare occurrence for me because I always come away with at least one new book because I can just never resist, and there's always something that catches my eye. But actually the reason I came away with no new books today wasn't really because I was strong-willed enough to resist, it was just because I went in with a very specific idea in my mind of what I was looking for, and I couldn't find anything that matched that description. Because after listening to that podcast yesterday, Lore, I was really keen to try and find a historical fiction about the Salem witch trials, and I just couldn't find anything, which is kind of disappointing, and I'm going to keep googling and see if I can find anything. But when I was looking in Waterstones, nothing jumped out as being sort of specifically related to the witch trials, so I'm going to have to keep searching for that. But that meant that I didn't end up buying anything, which is probably a good thing for my bank account and my TBR, because my shelves are so full and I don't need to buy any new books for quite a while. And then moving on to the book that I obviously am currently reading, I have actually made a decent amount of progress on Daughter of the Forest today, and I'm now just over 120 pages in, and I'm really enjoying it so far. However, I'm definitely getting the feeling that this is going to be a very slow burning book with not a lot of action, and the reason I'm getting that is just because it's very heavy on description, which is really great because it means that you kind of feel like you're getting to know all of the characters so well, which is amazing because obviously our main character is Circa, but she has 6 brothers, and I feel like the sort of descriptive writing style of this book means that we're getting to know Circa and her brothers all in such great depth, which is lovely, and I feel like all of her brothers have such distinct personalities, which is amazing. But I do feel like it's kind of taking a while to get to the point, because the blurb references the fact that her brothers are all going to be cursed by her dad's new wife, and that she's basically the one that has to break the curse. But we're obviously already over 100 pages in, and the dad's sort of new bride has only just come into it, and so the brothers haven't even been cursed yet. So I feel like when you reference something on the blurb, you would expect that to happen a little bit sort of sooner into the story. So I'm interested to see how long it's going to take before that event actually happens. But nevertheless, it is an interesting story, and I am enjoying the writing style. So it is currently Sunday afternoon, and I haven't picked up my camera or my book yet today because I've just had a really busy Sunday. However, it is now, as I said, Sunday afternoon, and I have no other plans today other than making dinner and chilling out. So basically I'm hoping to get quite a bit of progress made on Daughter of the Forest. But although I haven't done any reading yet today, I did want to give a quick little update on how much I managed to read last night, because my goal was to make it to 150 pages and I just surpassed that. I went a little bit over because that's where a chapter ended, and I was really pleased to finally reach that point, particularly because at around 150 pages was when we finally get to the part that is referenced on the blurb, which is where Circa's brothers are cursed by the Lady Una, and then she has to begin her quest to try and break that curse. So it was really exciting that we finally reached that point, because now I'm not kind of like waiting for a particular event to happen, and the following 400 pages are completely unknown to me, which is really refreshing and is making me even more excited to read it. And I also just wanted to mention that this screen behind me is from a YouTube channel called Ambient Worlds, and they basically put together music from popular shows and films along with like really cozy sounds. So this one is Harry Potter music with the sound of rain in the background, and it's so cozy and lovely, and I've been loving listening to that whilst reading and editing. And it's just such a mood, it's making me feel so cozy. So if you're the kind of person that likes to have something on in the background when you're reading that makes it seem like you're not in a completely silent room but isn't too distracting, I would highly recommend Ambient Worlds, because I'm just absolutely loving listening to that. So basically my plans for the rest of the afternoon and evening are to go and make some dinner, read some more of Daughter of the Forest, and listen to some lovely Ambient Worlds. So it's now Monday evening, and I've just gotten home from work, and I'm basically dedicating this evening to reading Daughter of the Forest, which is upside down because I'm an idiot. But basically I want to get some good progress made on this book because I really want to finish it over the next couple of days, and I'm currently just under 300 pages in. Now I'm actually really pleasantly surprised by how much I'm enjoying this book, because as I've mentioned quite a few times, it's very slow paced and focused on character development rather than plot, and so you're finding out a lot about these characters, and I'm actually really enjoying seeing their development throughout the story. And I had actually worried that because I knew it was so slow paced that I'd feel really sort of unmotivated to pick it up, but actually I'm finding quite the opposite. I'm just really enjoying reading about Circa particularly and seeing her sort of go on her journey. So that's a really pleasant surprise, and I've actually found that the pace has picked up slightly from the beginning of the book, which is again making it a little bit easier to read. But I did actually just come across a chapter in the book that was very intense. Now I did know this chapter was coming because I've seen a few people's reviews of this book, but that was basically a very, very graphic rape scene, which, as I said, I was expecting because I'd seen people talk about it and warn people about it, but it still kind of took me off guard because it was so intense and so graphic. And because this is obviously a book based on folklore and mythology, it feels very whimsical and based in nature and just kind of otherworldly, and so something like that, which is an event that very much happens in the real world and felt very sort of real, it kind of felt very jarring within this book. And although it was definitely sort of well written, and particularly in the way that it's shown how it has impacted Circa and how she now feels differently about her brothers and men in general, and how it's impacted the way she interacts with people, so I think it has been well written, but it just really shocked me just because of how different it felt from the tone of the rest of the book. But nevertheless, this is a really, really interesting book, and I'm like seriously enjoying finding out where these characters are going and watching Circa along her journey. Hey guys, so it's Tuesday morning, and I just wanted to quickly pop in basically to let you know how much I am loving Daughter of the Forest. So I'm now just under 400 pages in, which means I've only got about 175 pages left to go, and I just love this story so much. I think what's so amazing about this book is that Marillier leaves no details sort of uncovered. Like, she goes into such great depth and you feel like you get to know all the kind of like quirks about all of the characters, and in particular I just love how well we get to know Circa. But one thing that I was reading when I just read before bed last night that I absolutely loved was a description of Circa and her kind of like appearance, and if I can just find it, so it's on page 357 in my bit, and she's just getting ready to go to like a banquet, I think, and it basically says I had the pale skin of my people, and already wisps of dark hair escaped the neat plait to curl around my brow and temple. And for me that was just so incredible because obviously I think I've mentioned that my mum is Irish, and my brother and sister definitely didn't sort of inherit the Irish complexion, but clearly I obviously did. And then the dark hair, that's crazy. You've all seen my hair, it literally just does what it wants and doesn't play by the rules. So it's always really fun to see yourself kind of in a protagonist a little bit, just because I feel like in a lot of sort of books the main protagonist always has like perfect hair and everything and like tan skin, and so it's quite fun to see someone who's like super pale and has crazy dark hair that's Irish. So yeah, I really enjoyed that, but I just wanted to pop in quickly and just give you some updated thoughts. But for now it's obviously, as I said, Tuesday morning, and I think Jay and I are going to go out for a quick walk before I head out to work, so I probably won't have any more time for reading this morning, but I'm definitely going to pick it up on my lunch break. So it's currently Wednesday morning and I am currently about 400 pages into Daughter of the Forest, and my goal is to finish it today. So I've got about 150 pages left, which is of course quite a few pages to read in one day. However, I don't have work tomorrow, so I'm not in any rush to go to bed this evening or anything like that, so I'm hoping I will be able to get it finished today. But yeah, really enjoying it and can't wait to finish it and see where it goes. And I can also tell that I'm definitely going to want to continue on with this series because I just think that this story and the way that it's written is just so beautiful. But for now it's Wednesday morning, so I'm obviously going to work, but I haven't made my breakfast yet, so I'm going to go and do that, do some reading, and I will talk to you later. So I'm now back from work and I managed to read about 50 pages whilst I was at work on my lunch break, and there were actually a couple of really tense and kind of emotional chapters, and I'm not gonna lie, I did have to actually hold back a tear whilst I was sitting at my desk, so that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I've now got only about 50 pages left of Daughter of the Forest, which I'm honestly kind of sad about, just because I'm enjoying the book so much. I kind of don't want it to end, but at the same time I do also really want to know what happens at the end of the book, so I'm now going to go and make myself a cup of tea and sit down to finish the last couple of chapters of this book. About 9:30 and I just finished up reading Daughter of the Forest, which I absolutely loved, and I'm so surprised really by how much I enjoyed this book, just because I had no idea what to expect because it's so different from anything I would normally read, but I actually loved it so much, and I think the fact that I had low expectations made me love it even more just because it was so surprising. And there were so many things about this book that I loved, but really it was just the way that the characters were developed. Obviously, as I've mentioned several times, I loved following Circa along with her journey, and she was just such a well developed character. But I also really enjoyed finding out more about her brothers. In particular, I really liked Finbar and Connor, and then also Red was an amazing character, and I just loved his sort of developing relationship with Circa and seeing them sort of interact with each other even when she was unable to speak. So that was just an amazing partnership that I enjoyed seeing develop. Now there was kind of like one thing that I wasn't too happy about with this book, was just that there was some kind of like untied endings. In particular, kind of a spoiler, but the sort of main villain from the book, the Lady Una, kind of just disappears and you don't know what happens to her, and you kind of just left feeling like it was a bit anticlimactic. However, as I've seen a few people mention their reviews of this book, it is obviously part of a big series, and so there's always the potential that the villain and Lady Una may come back in later books in the series and that might get resolved, but obviously within this book it just doesn't get dealt with, so that's a little bit unsatisfying. However, I also feel like the book kind of avoids being able to be criticised for that, because Marillier does kind of talk about the fact that it's a book that's trying to be realistic, and it specifically says that realistic things don't have like neatly tied up endings, and real life doesn't always end in a satisfying way. And so the fact that it kind of consciously chooses to tie up like some of the storylines but leave some open, or not necessarily tie them up super neatly, is in a way a really clever tactic, and I did enjoy it. So overall this was such an amazing book and is definitely a 4 if not 5-star read. So I've officially now caught up with the April and May books for Myth Take Reads, and I enjoyed both of them so much, so thank you to Charlotte and Ashley for picking such amazing reads, and I'm now super excited to continue on with Myth Takes because I'm just so sure that all of the rest of the books are going to be amazing as well. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing all of my thoughts on the Wren Hunt and the Daughter of the Forest, because I enjoyed reading those books so much. So thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.